This is my Android phone, and right now it is running a full Linux desktop. Connect it to a monitor, and it becomes a Linux PC. And I am not talking about some basic terminal setup. I mean Claude Code, Blender, LibreOffice, local AI, all of it running on a phone. And the best part, this works on almost any Android phone, not just this one. But before I show you how to set this up, let me show you what I actually tested on it. Because honestly, that is the part you care about. First thing I installed was LibreOffice. Word processing, spreadsheets, presentations, everything worked exactly like you would expect on a normal desktop. Nothing broken, nothing missing. Then I opened VS Code and imported my actual project into it. Python, pip, extensions, everything worked exactly like it does on my PC. Honestly, that one surprised me the most. This was not some limited mobile version. It was the full thing. Then I tried Claude Code, an AI coding agent that runs inside the terminal. I could write code, install Linux tools, control the whole environment, all through it, on a phone. I am still wrapping my head around that one. Now for the heavy stuff. I installed Blender. It installed, opened, and ran. However, it lags significantly and is not currently suitable for professional 3D tasks. But honestly, the fact that it even runs on mobile hardware is already a little ridiculous. Right now, my phone is connected to a monitor, but if I need to leave, I just unplug it. My entire Linux setup comes with me. You cannot do that with a desktop. Now here is the important part. This is not an emulator. The Linux running on this phone has direct access to the phone's kernel. That is why performance is actually usable. It is not being translated or simulated. It is running directly on the hardware. Now the next question is, if the phone is running Linux, how do you actually get that onto a monitor? There are basically two kinds of phones that support display output over USB-C, and phones stuck with USB 2.0. And yes, even in 2026, a lot of manufacturers are still shipping mid-range phones with USB 2.0, which cannot carry display output at all. It is still mostly a flagship feature. If your phone supports it, the setup is easy. You just need a USB-C to HDMI adapter. One end into the phone, the other into the monitor. Done. But most phones do not support this. So I built a different solution. This is a Raspberry Pi 02W. I use it as a bridge between the phone and the monitor. The Pi runs standard Raspberry Pi OS. The phone runs a VNC server. When I connect the phone to the Pi using USB tethering, the Pi gets internet directly from the phone. Then I run a script on the Pi. It automatically finds the phone's IP address, opens VNC Viewer, and connects to the Linux desktop running on the phone. That is how the phone ends up on the monitor. I actually tried using SCRCPY first, but I could not get it compiled properly for this version of the Pi. VNC ended up being the solution that actually worked, and if you are not using an external monitor at all, then honestly, skip the Pi completely. Termux X11 directly on the phone is much faster than VNC. That is the better option for standalone use. Now let me explain how Linux is actually installed. I wrote a script that handles almost everything automatically. It uses something called TUR, the Termux User Repository, which is basically an extended package collection for Termux. A lot of Linux GUI applications can be installed directly from there, but TUR does not have everything. So my script also sets up a Proot container inside Termux. Proot is basically a lightweight Linux environment running inside Termux. When you need something that is not available in TUR, like Wireshark, Metasploit, or other heavier tools, you just enter Proot and install it using normal apt commands, exactly like Ubuntu. And this is probably the part I am happiest with. After installing something inside Proot, you do not need to manually enter the container every time just to launch it. The script has automatic menu sync. It scans what you installed and adds it directly to your desktop app menu, so it behaves like a normal Linux desktop instead of feeling like a hack. And honestly, that changes everything. Now let me show you exactly how to set this up on your own phone. First, we install Linux on the phone, then we set up the Raspberry Pi. So start by opening this repository on your phone and download both apps, Termux and Termux X11. I have added the direct download links there. Then copy the install script command. Now open Termux and give it storage permission. At the time I recorded this video, I had some local changes in my script that were not pushed to Git yet, so here I am running it locally. But for you, you just need to paste the command from the repository. Once you run it, the installation starts automatically. The script will first ask you to choose your desktop environment. You will see multiple options like XFCE, KDE, Mate, and a few others. You can go with whatever you prefer, but honestly, I recommend XFCE. It is the most optimized for this kind of setup and gives the smoothest experience. Once selected, it will start installing the desktop environment. After that, the script will ask you to set up the Proot environment. You can choose Ubuntu or whatever distro you prefer, but I usually go with Ubuntu. Once selected, it will start installing the Proot container. After that, the script will ask if you want to set up a VNC server. Now, this depends on how you plan to use the system. If you want to use it with the Raspberry Pi and an external monitor, choose yes. If you only want to use Linux directly on the phone using Termux X11, choose no. Since I want to use this on a monitor, I am choosing yes. For password and resolution, I am just going with the default values. Once the installation is finished, the script automatically creates 3 launch files. If you want to run Linux directly using Termux X11, use Start X11. If you want to run it through VNC for the Raspberry Pi setup, use Start VNC. And there is also a stop script to shut everything down properly. Right now, I am starting it with X11. And as you can see, everything is working exactly the way it should. Now let's move to the Raspberry Pi setup. You can use any firmware on the Pi, but I am using the official Raspberry Pi OS. Inside Pi OS, you just need to install Tiger VNC Viewer and paste this helper script. What this script does is simple. It automatically finds the phone's IP address and opens the VNC connection for you. So you do not have to manually check IPs every single time. After that, the final step is simple. Launch Start5NC inside Termux. Connect your phone to the Raspberry Pi with USB tethering enabled. Then run the script on the Pi. And that is it. Your full Linux desktop is now running through the Raspberry Pi and showing directly on your monitor. And honestly, this is one of my favorite setups I have built in a long time. Turning an Android phone into a real Linux desktop still feels slightly ridiculous, but it works. And not in a gimmick way, it is actually useful. Your entire workstation sitting in your pocket. If you want to try this yourself, everything, the scripts, the setup, and the full guide will be linked below. If you enjoyed the video, hit subscribe to see more content like this. That's it for this one. I will see you in the next one.